حمدا يكون لحقه قضاء ولشكره أداء وإلى صوابه موجبا ولحسن مزيده مقربا. الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين راحة للعاشقين والمراد المشتاقين شمس العارفين والسراج السالكين نبيه مصباح والعلم صاحب الجود والكرم والله حافظه وجبرائيل خادمه والبراق مركبه سدرة المنتهى مقامه كالقوسين محبوب رب المشرقين والمغربين جد الحسن والحسين مولانا ومولاي افتقنا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ثم الصلاة والسلام على جميع أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين المنتخبين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم منكر فضائلهم غاصب حقوقهم ومراتبهم ومنزلتهم ومقامهم من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في قرآنه الكريم وهو أصدق القائلين قوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So we've been talking about kind of the digital world, digital age over the past 10 days. And as I was discussing with, I don't know if he's got now, but I was discussing with him earlier, and I mentioned it before as well. When I planned this lecture series, I planned for 10 lectures. As it's happened, we've got 11 lectures in this series now because we started a day early. Which means that what comes after tomorrow is still to be planned. Now that could be something on this same topic of, you know, the digital world and social media, or it could be something entirely different. It could just be one kind of one-off lecture, but we'll kind of take a poll on that as and when the time comes for it. But here we're coming in towards the close of this whole topic of social media, digital world, technology, and how that affects us. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at what was intended to be the final lecture on this series, which was about how to switch it all off for a little while, how to kind of take a break, how to moderate how much we use our tech. Today is what I think to be the second most important. I think tomorrow is the most important, the ability to switch off when we need to. Today I think is the second most important. Arguably it's the most important, depending on what kind of things you value and what kind of things are important to you. Today we're going to be looking at the idea that online you can be a whole new person. Online you can be someone completely different. So who should you be? Who do you become online? Who is that person that we try to be or that we want to become online? And today, when we look at that, this whole kind of discussion stems around who actually are we? Who are we in real life? And when we come to realize who we are, what we are, then we can realize who we are online. Then we can try and realize who we are in this digital world. But we have to understand who we are first. We have to understand our identity. Our identity in the real world, first of all. And there's a few things that I'm going to look at in particular on our identity. And to try and understand that, we can then try and translate that into the digital world. Recite that to Muhammad wa ala
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So identity, the first thing I think it's important to realize about yourself is who are you socially, right? Because we all have different kind of social settings. And by that I mean some people, they're more outgoing, they're more social, they're more bubbly. Some people, they like their own small crowds. They don't really like to meet new people as much. They don't like to be kind of the focus of attention so much. Some people, depends entirely on their mood. Sometimes they'll be outgoing and bubbly, and sometimes they'll be a little bit more kind of reserved, a bit more drawn to themselves. Sometimes you have people who don't really fall in either camp. And the names that's given to these two kind of overarching ideas, so the kind of social, outgoing, bubbly, likes meeting new people, is what you normally call an extrovert. And the opposite of that is somebody who likes to stay reserved. They don't really like to meet new people as much. They don't like kind of big social gatherings and things like that. They like their small little groups of people they're already comfortable with. Those are people known as introverts. It's very important to realize kind of where we lie on this spectrum. Are you somebody who enjoys being around new people and meeting new people? Or are you somebody who rather stay within the people you know? Would you rather be someone who's comfortable with, the few friends you've got, but you don't really like going out there, expanding that, meeting new people, building new relationships? And both of these are perfectly fine. Both of these are perfectly normal. There's loads of people on both sides of the camp. And sometimes you'll find that you do like being reserved and you don't like massive social gatherings, but at the same time you do like meeting new people. So you pick and choose little bits from each kind of category. There's no kind of hard and fast rule to that. But that's the first thing that we have to realize. What do we actually enjoy? Do we like being kind of extroverted, social, bubbly, centre of attention, constantly meeting new people and going out, putting ourselves out there? Or are you more of a reserved type of person who is comfortable with the people that are around you already, the people that you feel safe with and you feel comfortable with? Which one of those two are you? Recognizing that is the first step to being comfortable with it. And one thing I'll mention when it comes to being confident in ourselves and being comfortable with ourselves is you can be either. A lot of people think that the most popular person is that outgoing, social, bubbly guy. Oftentimes we think that that guy who's always putting themselves out there is the most popular. But for a lot of my friends, the ones who are the most kind of, the closest with everyone around them, are the ones who, they're not the most social, they're not the most kind of outgoing. They're quite reserved to themselves. They don't talk to everyone. They like to stay in their own tight-knit circles, but they're happy being that guy. They're happy being reserved. They don't try and force themselves to be social and bubbly when they're not. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't put yourselves in, sometimes put yourselves in situations where you force yourself to make friends with somebody. No, that's not what I'm talking about here. This is about changing who you are. You shouldn't try to change who you are. We're going to come and look at that further on. But this is the first thing, our social kind of settings. Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? The second one is our beliefs and principles. That's the second kind of main form of our identity, the main thing that builds who we are. Our beliefs and principles, so the main belief that we're all going to go with obviously is Islam. We believe in Islam, so your identity is built off of the fact that you follow the religion of Islam, which means when it comes to things like drinking or going clubbing or doing drugs and things like that, you won't. Why? The reason that you're not doing that isn't because you're not kind of social and outgoing above. No, that's because you believe in Islam. This is the reason that you act upon these things. I'm going to say everyone recite aloud, Salawat Allah Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, and slowly move towards my left hip, so that there's more space for you to come. I only heard Zayd say Salawat, but I'll let that pass this time. We're looking at the reasons why we do different things, because that is what our identity is, the kind of core within us that changes what we do, why we do, how we do it. Second one is beliefs and principles. So our beliefs are our Islamic beliefs, what Islam tells us, and what we believe in Islam, right? And there'll be times where you don't entirely believe everything Islam says. There'll be times where some things don't make sense. There'll be times where you'll be looking at certain things of Islam and you think, I don't really get why that's the case. I don't understand why Islam says that. And fair enough. That doesn't mean you don't act upon it. It just means you've got that question in your mind, right? But so long as you've got that question in your mind, you're more susceptible to not act upon it, right? If you don't believe in it, then it's much more likely that you're not going to do it. For instance, if you don't believe that praying 5 times a day has any benefit, then it's very likely that when it comes time for Fajr and you think, am I going to get out of bed, do wudu, splash water on my face, completely wake myself up when I'm having a nice nap, having a nice sleep, to read Fajr, if you don't believe in that Fajr, if you don't believe it does anything for you, or are you going to think, oh, I could just switch off my alarm and go back to sleep? The more likely is if you don't believe in it, then you're going to go back to sleep, right? And that's because what you believe in has a massive impact on what you do and how you do it. So A, here we have to understand what our beliefs and principles are, and B, we have to understand why we believe in those things. And our principles aren't purely based on Islam. There's other things, like other moral values that we have. So for instance, telling the truth. Whether you're a Muslim or not, people have that as a principle, that they're going to be honest. Not backbiting. Whether you're a Muslim or not, people have that as a principle, that they're not going to gossip and talk behind other people's backs. These are moral principles, which don't need you to be a Muslim for you to follow them, but we do, and Islam tells us to follow them regardless. These kind of beliefs and principles build a big part of why we do what we do and who we are. And the last one is our attitudes and our mindsets. And what I mean by that is, for instance, you have fight or flight, for instance. So when you're faced with danger, what do? Do you attack that danger, or do you try and get away from it? This is a big part of our identity because it forms how we react to certain situations, right? And when I say attitudes and mindsets, I don't mean just this kind of fight or flight concepts. I mean all sorts of things that are how your mind works, how your mind processes things. Some people are more rational, some people are more emotional. Some people like logic and reasoning, and some people like just faith and belief in stuff. They like, the trust of things. When we understand what our mindsets are, what our attitudes to different things are, we realize how it affects our behavior. We realize how it affects who we are. And all of these things, you put them all kind of together. What you believe, what your principles are, socially, how you like to act, what you're comfortable being, your attitudes, your mindsets, the way you think about things, the way you see things. You put all these together and it makes you, the very core of you, what you call kind of your fitrah, your nature, the very basic sense of who you are, your identity. So, why are we talking about socials and identity? Why are we talking about identity in this whole topic of the digital world and our socials and our interactions online? Because online, like I mentioned at the start, you have this opportunity to just become a whole new person. What's the first one? You can choose anybody you want to be. Now that could be you, who you already are, or it just could be someone completely new. And like I said, I've got friends who, in real life, they're the most shy people. Online, these people are the most outgoing, most social guys. Why? Because they reinvented themselves online. They decided, you know what? No one who follows me on Twitter really knows me like that in real life. So I'm just going to be this whole new guy. I'm going to be whoever I really want to be. Like deep down, I want to be like this and like this and like this. So online, I'm going to be that person. So we have the opportunity to rebuild ourselves, reinvent ourselves, be someone completely new. And people online have no idea. The majority of people online who don't know you, they have no idea that that's not actually you in real life, right? And the second one is, there's a lot to be gained if you can be the right kind of person online. And what I mean by this is, for instance, one example. As humans, we love to be part of a community, right? We love to be part of a group. And it's the reason why we see every single person tries to fit themselves into some kind of group or another, whether you fit yourself into the group of Muslims, or you fit yourself into the group of Arsenal fans, or you fit yourself into the group of, your little group of friends at school. Like my school, we had a system where every year, as you would come in, you'd get a specific colour tie. There were 5 colour ties. Whatever tie you got, you kept that colour tie until you left school, right? And then, once you left school, whoever started year 7 after you, so the next set of year 7s, they would get that kind of tie. It might be hard to wrap your head around, I didn't explain it very well, but basically, I was a green tie, which meant my tie was green. So year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, my tie was green, and then when I left year 11, whoever was joining year 7 next, the year after, they get the green tie. So now, everything I associate is just with green ties, And, favourite colour, green, all these different things. You just kind of immerse yourself into it. Why? Because that becomes a little community. Then you've got the community of the school. I fit into Ernest Bevin School from South London. That's who I am. That's where I'm from. I fit into that community. Like I said, Arsenal fans. That's a community. I know that if I go to Emirates, there's at least 55,000 people there who are all part of the same community as me. What I do, they back. What they do, I'll back. We all like to be part of a community. We all like to be part of some kind of social group. It's natural. That's how we are as humans. And online, you can be part of the social groups that you want to be part of. Online, you can have this massive online community, but so long as you adhere to their rules, right? So, as long as you adhere to the rules that online dictates, this is the kind of person we like, then that's fine. You can be that guy. You can have that community online. You can have those friends online. And this is the reason we see that online there's so many different communities, there's so many different groups, but they all seem to follow the same kind of trend. That's why people, they take the mick out of, like, I don't know, for instance, on Twitter, people take the mick out of Muslim Twitter. Why? Because they always post the same kind of stuff. The reason they post the same kind of stuff is they know if I post this kind of stuff, then I'll get that kind of following. I'll get those people who like me and those people who support me and those people who become my little community. So if you follow the rules of that group, then you can be a part of that group. But sometimes that means changing who you are to fit in with those people. And we see that in real life as well. People with their friends acting different to how they really are, just that they fit in with their friends, just that their friends will accept them. It happens all the time. You'll notice it around you. As you get older, you'll notice people change depending on who they're sitting with, depending on who they're hanging out with. And it happens. You stand to gain a lot if you can follow certain rules. And it's the same reason you see, for instance, lots of people always ask questions like, oh, why don't influencers post on social issues and things like that, and why not? Well, because sometimes if they post on a particular social issue, then they'll lose a sponsor. They'll lose money. They'll lose someone who pays them for ads and things like that. They stand to gain by not speaking on those things. Or, in another instance, they stand to gain on posting certain particular things or posting in a certain way. I'll give you another big example of that. For instance, most of you guys here would have heard of Arsenal Fan TV, right? Now, whether you accept they're fans or not, they make a lot of money by acting like they hate a lot of the players, right? Whatever you think of them in real life, they make a lot of money by being very angry every time Arsenal lose. They make a lot of money by bashing players every time Arsenal lose. Whether they believe that or not, they know that they make a lot of money off of that. They know that they get loads of views off of that. They know that that's how their following is going to increase. So they do that. They make themselves out to be like somebody who absolutely loves the club, but they hate it when we lose and we get angry and, you know, you're swearing, you're shouting and you're blaming, you know, like Xhaka and you're blaming Tin, you're blaming Arteta and you've got all these different things going on. But is that really them? You don't know. It might be, it may well be, but it might also not be at all. They just know that they stand to gain from being like that. And the last reason that I'm going to mention as to why we change our identity or why socials affect our identity is very simply that when you're online, especially on Instagram, you will see the best sides of people. And you'll want that. It's normal. When you see something good in somebody else, you want that for yourself. You see someone who's great at football, you think, oh, I wish I was as good as him, or, you know. That's why the F2 are so great. Like, that's why they've got so many followers. F2 freestylers, everybody knows them, everybody watches them. Why? Because they do some amazing tricks with the football. They can do some amazing stuff. And people see that and they like it and they think, oh, I wish I could do that. Oh, I wish I was like that. And it's the same thing. If you look around you, as you get older, the people you hang out with, there'll be something about them that you like. And that could be, for instance, that they're funny, that could be that they're smart, that could be that they dress well. But when you like something in somebody and you want that for yourself, you resonate towards them, you go towards them, right? In the same reason, especially on Instagram, you see the best sides of people. You see the absolute best of their life, you know. They're on holiday here and there and there, and they're doing this and that, and they're buying this and that, and all these different things. You see the best sides of their life. And you want that for yourself, and you think, well, I want to kind of have that life. So you want to put out an image of that life for yourself. Whether you have it or not, you want to put out that image because that's what you see in other people, and you want that for yourself. You don't see all the difficulties behind it, or you don't see all the people kind of, you know, someone's taking a photo at an amazing spot in a holiday destination. You don't see that there's 100 people queuing up to take that same photo in front of that waterfall or whatever. You just see the photo of them in front of the waterfall and you think, wow, that's amazing. We have to realize that all these kind of aspirational things we see, all these things we see that look amazing, there's a lot that goes into them. It's not just, you know, stand up there, take a picture. It's not just live a super easy life and get all these amazing, amazing things that they're posting. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of effort, a lot of difficulty that comes with it. But then we're talking about all these things about being aspirational and seeing things that we like for ourselves and wanting to do that. And why is that a bad thing? Why is it a bad thing to try and show off the best version of ourselves, to try and change ourselves and make ourselves that aspirational person? See, the first thing is, we have to understand we can improve, we can develop ourselves, we can make ourselves better. That's one thing. But to completely change who you are is a different thing entirely. It's a completely different concept entirely. It's completely change who you are on the inside. To change is more hiding from your reality, hiding from who you actually are. To try and be someone different completely, as soon as that phone switches off, or as soon as, you know, your followers aren't messaging you anymore, interacting with you anymore, all of a sudden you're back to your reality, you're back to who you actually are in real life. And if you've spent so much time trying to change who you are in the eyes of all these people online, all of a sudden, in real life, when you realize I'm still that same person, it won't feel good. Because you've not spent time enjoying who you are. You've not spent time becoming comfortable with who you are. Instead, all you've done is try and change who you are, try and hide who you are, become someone new. It's the same concept that a lot of people, for instance, and this will apply more to those who are older than those of you who are younger, but people who kind of go on holiday as an escape, you know, just get away from the rush of work or school or everything for a little while, but then when you come back, you're back in the midst of all of that again. Back in work, back in deadlines, back in, you know, your boss pinging you at 12 o'clock at night, and back in all these different things. Escaping is not the answer. You can't escape from these different things. You have to learn to find some appreciation in it, find the best out of it. Because if you escape, all that means is that at some point you're going to return right back into that mess, right back into all of that again. And we can't ever really change, because inside who we are, that will always be the same. You are your own person, and you always will be that person. Like I said, you can improve, you can develop, you can get better at being that person, but you can't change it completely. You can't become a new person, because that's not you anymore. And you can feel it when it's not you. When you're being someone else, you can feel it, you can tell. You have that understanding within you that this isn't me, this isn't who I am, this isn't what I do, this isn't how I behave. And that leads to this kind of fake feeling. It leads to some really serious problems. And some of you might have felt some of these before, but not known what they are. One is kind of a sense of detachment, where you see yourself and you think, that's not me. I'm not enjoying myself, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. This sense of detachment, it can be dangerous. And the second one, which a lot more of you might have felt, especially as you get older, is something what's called Imposter Syndrome, where, for instance, you see what you've achieved and you see what you've got, and you think, I don't deserve it, right? So when you get like super good grades or something like that, and in your mind you have a little thought that says, I don't know how I got those grades, I didn't deserve that. Well, she did, you studied, you worked hard, you got those grades, right? Or even if you didn't study and work hard for it, you had the intelligence to get there, you had the understanding of how to write an exam and how to answer questions. That gave you natural talent to get there. But this idea of, I shouldn't have what I have, this idea of, I don't deserve what I've gotten. As you get older, a lot of us will feel this, like I shouldn't be in the position that I'm in, I shouldn't be getting all these things that I get. Like, and I'll give you an example for me, that happens a lot. You know, when I get praise for a lecture and things like that, I think, you know, alhamdulillah, but I'm not worthy of that praise. Like, that praise shouldn't be coming to me, I don't deserve it. And there's two different things to note with this. There's two different kind of facets of it. One is understanding that everything we have is from Allah Azza wa Jalla. He gives it to us, and He can take it away at any time. But the other is recognizing Allah's given you what He's given you for a reason. Allah's put you in the position you're in because He thought you could handle it. He thought you were worth that position. So letting ourselves feel fake, letting ourselves feel these kind of feelings and these emotions is dangerous. They're not nice feelings, they're not good feelings. And Islam, at the end of the day, we said it many times in this lecture series, it wants us to be happy. Allah Azza wa Jalla wants the best for us. He wants us to be happy. Recite aloud to Allah, Muhammad wa So, we've spoken all about this kind of confidence and feeling confident and whatnot, and the next thing I want to look at is how do we figure out, am I feeling confident or not? Because a lot of the times, everything I'm talking about here, these are feelings inside us, but when you put them into words, sometimes they match up to what you're feeling and sometimes they don't. They don't always translate into words very well. So how do we measure that confidence? How do we figure out, am I confident being me? Am I confident in myself or not? Do I have this feeling that I want to be different or I want to be someone else? The first thing is, you know best what your true self is. You know best who you are, who you're comfortable being, what you're comfortable being like, how you're comfortable acting. If you're not your true self, you know it before anybody else. Oftentimes, people who are very close to you will be able to see it. When you're acting different, things like that, people will notice it if they're very close to you. But before anybody else knows, you will know. If you're not being your true self, then you have to think, what's the reason for that? Why am I not being me? The second one is, how comfortable are you in being you? So for instance, if when you're out with your mates, you're this completely different person, and then you get home and all of a sudden you're completely different again, you're not displaying confidence within yourself. You're not being confident as you go out into the world. You're not being confident in who you are. Now again, there's something we have to take note of here, in that there is something called your public self and your private self, right? We're not exactly the same outside as we are inside when we're alone. But if you realise that when you're at home, you just like to be alone, you don't like to talk to anyone or anything or whatnot, but when you go out with your mates, you decide, I have to be bubbly and I have to be social and I have to be the centre of attention. That's not self-confidence. That's you being somebody you're not. And a lot of people do this, and a lot of people do it much more than they realise. You'll do it subconsciously because you want to fit in, you want to belong in that group that you're in. The third one is, how conscious are you of how people see you? As you get older, you'll have certain things that you're more and more conscious of. You're more and more what you call insecure about. Things that you're not comfortable about with yourselves. And they could be all sorts of things. They could be kind of how you look, they could be how you talk, they could be, if you constantly think, oh, I don't know if this person likes me or that person likes me, or you meet someone new and your immediate thought is, oh, I don't think they like me. That's a display of a lack of confidence. That's a display of you being conscious of how other people see you, over-conscious. Now again, we spoke yesterday about putting the best image of ourselves out there. That still stands, that's still important. But being overly worried about what people will think of you, in the sense that immediately thinking the worst, that is a display of a lack of confidence. And the last one is, are you able to just be honest and accept who you are? Are you able to be honest with yourself about who you are? If you can, and you can be honest with yourself, then you're showing yourself a certain level of confidence within who you are, a certain level of confidence within your own identity. But what kind of things impact that confidence? What kind of things affect that confidence? The first one is, I'm going to mention, is the most obvious one, is just how we look. When you look good, you feel good. That's why a lot of us, especially guys, in fact, I think pretty much only you guys, when you get a new trim, when you get fresh trim, you feel good, And we all do it. We feel a lot better. Like, with me, I'll tell you the truth, there's been times where I've driven to the barbershop and I've walked it home because I thought, you know what, I look good today. When you get that fresh trim, when you get that new trim, you cut your hair, you look good, you've got a boost in confidence. You feel better about everything. You feel happier when you're confident. It's natural, it's normal. You do that. We all do that. But at the same time, the flip side of it is when you're not feeling confident, when you don't look good, when you don't feel like, when you don't look in the mirror and feel like you're looking good, that impacts your confidence massively. It can be all sorts of things, People who struggle with their weight, people who struggle with acne, people who struggle with eczema, people who struggle with, dandruff, people who struggle with all sorts of different things, they can find that it affects their confidence. But when you're confident being who you are, when you're confident in yourselves, you realise that really and truly nobody else is actually looking at these things. You realise that really and truly nobody else really cares about that kind of stuff. You realise everyone's so worried about themselves, everyone's so worried about what they look like and how they're putting themselves out there and what other people think of them, that they don't even have time to think about all the things that you're worried they're looking at and they're focusing on. They're not focusing on that at all, in the nicest way possible. They're not focusing on that at all. And the other thing is, on socials, this tendency we have to compare ourselves to others, right? When you see your mates and, like I said, they're jet setting off on holidays and things like that, and you think, why can't I have that? Why can't I live that life? Comparing yourself to others is one of the biggest reasons why we don't feel confident in ourselves, because we compare ourselves to the best version of them without realising everything that's in behind that. And especially when it comes to socials, things like getting bogged down in how many likes you got in, one very popular one supposedly is counting how many people wish you happy birthday. I didn't realise this was a thing, but apparently a lot of people do that. Counting how many people wish you happy birthday and who wish you happy birthday and whatnot. When you get bogged down in stuff like this, you miss out on the really important stuff in life. The great stuff going on in your life, you forget about that stuff because you're too worried about all of these little things. The important thing is your own outlook, how you see the world, how you see your life. Another thing that affects our confidence is this idea of perfectionism. This might affect the girls more than the guys, to be fair, but this idea that everything has to be absolutely perfect and I can't move on from anything until it is perfect. If you bog yourself down in the details of perfectionism, you're never going to feel like you've achieved that level of perfect. That's a very difficult level to get to. if you set yourself these targets that are impossible to reach, you're going to find your confidence dropping because you're never hitting those targets. You're never doing what it is that you want it to do to the standard that you want it to do it. Another thing that curiously impacts how confident you are in yourselves, and parents in the room will like me mentioning this, is clutter around you. So if your room is dirty or things like that, it can genuinely affect your confidence because it feels like you've got all this stuff piling up around you. You can feel that you've got all of these unfinished things, you know, you've got all your papers out, or you've got even digital clutter, what we're talking about. We're talking about digital world, right? Having 100 tabs open on your laptop while you're working on an assignment or something, right? All of that weighs is that this is all stuff that I need to do, this is all stuff that I need to get through. And when you have all these different mountains and mountains of piles of work, you look at it and you think, I've not actually gotten through anything. And that can affect your confidence as well. And the last one I'm going to mention is humour. We all like to have a laugh with our mates, and you know, a lot of us, we like to take the mick out of each other and whatnot, and you know, in a friendly way, that's fine. But sometimes that can affect you as well, and that can affect the people around you. You have to be careful of that, because it can knock somebody's confidence. What we spoke about earlier, like the insecurities that people have, if you make a joke about someone's insecurity, that can really affect them. And in fact, there was a study that showed people with high levels of confidence in themselves, what we call high self-esteem, they prefer humour that kind of bigs themselves up. Humour that, whether they mean it or not, they prefer humour that is what you call kind of almost boastful, you know? It's self-enhancing. Whereas people with low confidence, they kind of feed off of humour and jokes, which are what you call self-deprecating. Humour which is kind of against you, taking the mick out of yourself and things like that. And it's an odd one because, especially growing up in school, I don't know about what you guys' school was like, but my school definitely, all we did pretty much for 5 years, from year 7 to 11, was take the mick out of each other. That's just what everyone did. That's kind of how we had a laugh in my school. But there's certain things, some people, they can handle it a lot better than other people. Some people, it doesn't affect them as much as other people. Some people, it will. It'll take a knock on their confidence. It'll have an impact. And I've got friends who I can see now, genuinely, when they want to fit in, or when they want people to kind of think that they're funny, they'll make a joke about themselves, a joke at their own cost. And you think to yourself, you didn't need to make that joke, right? You think to yourself, why are you taking a mick out of yourself now all of a sudden? And it's because that lack of confidence, they think that's the only way people will like me, that's the way I'll fit in with people. But we have to remember, these little things, they have an impact, they have a massive impact. We're talking about things that have an impact. Let's look at the flip side of things, the better side of things. How do we make these things better? I've spoken about all these problems and the reasons and whatnot. How do we make these things better? The first one is just look at yourself, what you call introspection. Allah Azza wa Jal, in Surah Safat, verse 155, he says, it's very, very simple, this ayah of the Quran, and it's one that we should all try and remember. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Do you not think? What's Allah Azza wa Jal talking about here? He's talking about thinking about yourselves, looking in at your own life, looking in at how you perceive your life and who you are and what you are and how you behave, and just thinking, who am I? Getting yourself comfortable with that, thinking about yourself. In fact, a man once comes to the Prophet, Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Recite Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Muhammad wa alayhi. And he says, O Prophet of Allah, tell me, what's the best way to recognize Allah Azza wa Jal? What's the best way to recognize Allah? So what does the Prophet reply? He says, recognize yourself. When you recognize who you are, you gain that confidence, you gain that happiness in your life, then you're able to see, A, how great you are. When you realize how great you are, you realize you can only have come from something greater than yourself. When you realize you can only have come from something greater than yourself, then you start realizing how many levels of greatness there are. And at some point you reach that level of greatness, which is Allah Azza wa Jal, which cannot be human, it cannot be physical, it cannot be something in this world. The Prophet here is telling us, you want to recognize Allah, recognize yourself. Islam tells us again and again, like in that verse of Surah Safat, أَفْلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Do you not think? Do you not look back at what you've done? Do you not think about yourself? Do you not reflect? Because to reflect on ourselves and to look at ourselves, it can be one of the greatest things to help us build our confidence. But there's a very strong caveat here. It's a very important point to note. When we're reflecting on ourselves, it's so easy to reflect on ourselves in a negative way. it's so easy to reflect on ourselves and think, oh, I'm terrible and I'm this and I'm that. For instance, like if I'm playing football and I've had a bad game, I think about every bad pass, I think about every bad shot, I think about every bad decision, and I reflect on myself, I reflect on what I did. That's what Quran says, right? Reflect, look back, think. But I'm not thinking in a good way. I'm not thinking, okay, I could have done this better and I could have done this better. No, I think I did that terribly and I did that terribly. The way that we think, and thinking is, again, it's different for different people, but for the majority of people, thinking is just a voice in your head. It's just a conversation you have with yourself, right? That's why we all have a particular voice that we think in. If you can have that conversation in your head and realize this is just a conversation, this isn't a one-way voice, you can talk back to that. If you can do that, then you can control how your mind sees yourself. You can control how you think of yourself as well. And once you're able to control how you think of yourself, you can make sure that you're thinking of yourself in a positive way, in a positive manner. You can boost your confidence and build your confidence. The next thing is having achievable targets. We spoke about how clutter feels like you've got all these different things that you haven't done, and how perfectionism feels like you've never hit your targets. Having little targets in the day that are achievable are very useful. They're very helpful. Like for instance, again, I'll go back to myself. At work, what I do is I have a little notebook and I write out everything I need to do every day. And when I've done it, little tick, I can just see, okay, that's one thing I've got off my list, another thing I've got off my list. And it genuinely, it keeps you more motivated to keep going. When you've done more and more, and you can see, oh, I've had a really good day, I've done like 10 things out of my to-do list today, then you can see, actually, yeah, I've had a good day today. When you think I've had a good day today, then you realize, you know what, things are going well, I am doing well, I'm good at my job, myself. These kind of things, they help you. Having small targets that you can reach, small targets that you can achieve. So for instance, if you struggle with your 5 daily prayers, just think to yourself, I'm going to set each of those prayers as one target. I'm going to wake up in the morning for Fajr. You've woken up for Fajr, you pray your Fajr, get back into bed, that's one thing done for your day, that's good. That's one target achieved. All right, I'm going to make sure I read my Zohar. All right, when it comes to Zohar time, you read your Zohar, that's another target achieved. And you'll feel good when you think, yeah, I'm doing well. The things I wanted to do, I'm doing them. I'm getting through these things. I'm being productive. I'm doing well. The next one is removing negative relationships. Now this is a bit of a difficult one because sometimes we can feel like those negative relationships come from people who we can't remove from our lives. So sometimes you'll feel like, excuse me, sometimes you'll feel like that kind of the voice of negativity around us, the people that are putting us down and making us lose confidence. That could be like your closest mates at school. And you think to yourself, well, if I'm not mates with them, then who am I going to be mates with? Like, I have to be mates with them. I can't get rid of them because I've got no one else to be mates with. Sometimes it can feel like that can come from within your own home. Again, we have to go back to what we were looking at, I think it was yesterday. Whose opinions matter, right? Your parents, your family, their opinions matter. Why? Because they want what's best for you. Where those opinions are negative, you have to look at, A, how those opinions are kind of conveyed to you, how they're talking to you, how you're talking back. And B, what's the real takeaway from what they're saying? If they're saying you look shabby or you don't look good or whatnot, masalan, then the takeaway from that is, like go get your hair cut or iron your clothes before you wear them or, make sure you look good when you go out. The takeaway isn't, you look terrible and that's the end of that. No, the takeaway from that is you can do better, to look better. They might not have said it in that way. You have to understand what they're trying to get across. In certain situations, you'll find that people who are constantly negative about you are people you can remove from your lives. It could be, I don't know, it could be a friend who you think, you know what, I don't need that in my life, and you move that away. The next one, it ties in quite well with this, is you've got to learn to say no sometimes. If people put you in situations that you're not comfortable with, people are making jokes that you're not comfortable with, you have to be confident enough to say, you know what, I don't like that joke, or you know what, I don't want to do this, and I can't do this, or I'm not comfortable doing this. When you learn to say no, it becomes so much easier to recognize who you are, what you like, what you do, and you have a certain confidence, because it takes confidence to tell people no. It's not easy. But at the same time, when you can do it, then you have a certain sense of control over your own life. When you have that control over your own life, then you can be more confident. You gain that confidence. Why? Through that control. And the last one that I'm going to mention is to scare yourself a little bit, right? If you want to be confident, you've got to show yourself how great you are. The best way to show yourself how great you are is something that you don't think you can do, go ahead and do it. Me, when I was younger, I used to be scared of heights. One day, I was in a situation where I was like the group leader for a group of kids in, PGL type thing, right? One of those kind of camps. And I was thinking to myself, the task was, I don't know how many of you guys know what Jacob's ladder is. It's basically this really tall ladder that's swinging, and the rungs, they get bigger and bigger as you go, and you've got to race to the top, right? In my head, I thought to myself, well, all these kids behind me, they look up to me like I'm the world. I've got this big ladder. If I turn around and tell them, I can't do this, I'm scared of heights, they're gonna be like, that's gonna shatter my image in front of them. They're gonna think, oh, who is this guy? I thought, well, can't be that hard, right? So I shut my eye. Well, I didn't shut my eyes because that would be very wise. But I raced up that ladder. I didn't look down. Got to the top. And when I got to the top, I thought, this is actually quite nice. I quite like it. And now, it's a curious thing that everywhere I go, I like to reach some sort of height. Whether that's going, I don't know, like mountain climbing, whether that's going skydiving, whether that's going abseiling. I like to get to some sort of height, something high up. Just because I love it so much now. But in that moment, I thought to myself, there's no way I can do this. And I had to convince myself, literally, talk to myself, convince myself, you know what? Why not? Just go for it. And when I did, that boost of confidence was massive. That thing that I thought I couldn't do, all of a sudden I'm there, I'm doing it. And all these other things now, whenever something's in front of me, I think, I cannot do that. Whenever something's in front of me, I think, no, that's too scary, I'm not going to do that, I cannot do that. I think back to that same fear of heights. Like, well, I'm not scared of heights anymore, I didn't think I could do that, but all of a sudden I can. To scare yourself, to put yourself in a position where you're not comfortable, it will make your confidence boost because you can show yourself that, you know what, I'm actually better than I give myself credit for. And a lot of the times we are. In a lot of different aspects of life, we're better than we give ourselves credit for. The main aspect is our religion. One big issue that we have is a lot of times we think, you know what, I've missed so many namazes, I've done so many things that I shouldn't have done, and I'm so far away from Islam, or I'm not a good enough Muslim. I do so many things that I shouldn't do, and I don't do so many things that I should do. I'm not a good enough Muslim. You know, you're a better Muslim than you give yourself credit for. The biggest part of Islam is to be a good person. Now, how many of us would think to ourselves, I'm not a good person? How many of us think I'm not a good human? You think you're a good human. That is taking you a long way to being a good Muslim. Recognizing that we are good Muslims, recognizing that we are good people, it boosts your confidence in a massive way. When you have that confidence within yourself, you'll find yourself less susceptible to all the problems that come with having low confidence, having low self-esteem. You protect yourself from a lot of difficult moments, a lot of difficult times, a lot of difficult thoughts. It's all about having that control over your mind. How do I see myself? Do I see myself as a good person or a bad person? Good Muslim, bad Muslim. Good friend, bad friend. Do I see myself as the person I want to be or not? When you build that confidence, you build yourself. And when you build yourself, you're carrying out exactly that which Allah Azza wa Jal put us on this earth to do. When Allah Azza wa Jal put us on this earth, He didn't put us on this earth as complete human beings. Why? You're babies. You've got so much more to learn about the world, so much more to understand about everything around you. We're here to grow. We're here to become that best version of ourselves. We're here to improve. We're here to complete our life. We're here to complete ourselves. And when we do that, we're doing what Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to do. If you build your confidence, you're pushing yourself in the right direction towards Allah Azza wa Jal, whether you realize it or not. And that is our ultimate aim. That is our ultimate goal. And it's thanks to the holy personalities that we have, the people we turn to, the people we revere, that we're able to have examples, we're able to have people who we can look up to and think, yeah, that's what I want to be like. I want to aspire to be like them. And one of the things with Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we spoke about looking at people in your lives and seeing the best side of their life and thinking, wow, that was amazing, and I want to be like that, and I wish I had my life like that. The thing with the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is we see how great they were, we see the absolute heights of brilliance within them. But we also see all the difficulties that they went through that made them worth it. We also see all the difficult times that they had to go through to get to that point. We see all of the things that they had to struggle with in order to be so great. And there's times where in their lives they turned and they remembered us as well. There's times in their lives where they thought about me and you as well. And that in and of itself should be such a confidence booster. In the lives of our Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, they were remembering me and they were remembering you, each of us individually. One such moment, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he has the body of a small baby in his hands. He turns to Medina and he calls out, Ya Rasulullah, I wish in this moment my Shias could see me. He calls out, Ya Rasulullah, I wish in this moment my followers, my believers could see me. Why? In that moment, Imam Hussein had done the most difficult thing he had ever had to do. This was the moment Imam Hussein alayhi salam had given up his baby Asghar, his lovely child, his beautiful young boy, Hazrat Ali Asghar alayhi salam. He is known as Bab al-Hawaij. Bab al-Hawaij is somebody who Allah Azza wa Jal grants wishes for the sake of. Allah Azza wa Jal grants our du'as for the sake of Hazrat Ali Asghar alayhi salam. Hazrat Ali Asghar was only 6 months old. What could he have done in 6 months that made him Bab al-Hawaij? My heart tells me of the dua of his parents. They must have thought, Asghar, when you grow up, I want you to be like Abul Fadl Abbas. Abbas is Bab al-Hawaij. Allah Azza wa Jal responded to their dua saying, Rabab, Hussein, Asghar won't grow up to be like Abbas, but in his infancy he will become Bab al-Hawaij. It was what Hazrat Ali Asghar did. That beautiful young child, that beautiful young prince, just understand how young Ali Asghar was. That when that arrow hits the neck of Asghar, Asghar doesn't know, am I meant to cry or am I meant to laugh? Asghar doesn't know, what do I do in this moment? Instead, Asghar, in that last moment, tried to protect his father. If you can listen to the story of Asghar, listen to what this young child does. The day of Ashura arrives. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he goes out towards the battlefield. The cry is heard throughout Karbala. Hal min nasirin yansurna, is there anybody left to help us? Abu Abdullah looks out. Ya Hussein, just a short while ago you had Abbas, you had Akbar, you had Qasim. Just a short while ago all of Muhammad were there to give their lives, but what happened now? The grandson of Rasulullah standing in the battlefield amongst the armies calling out, is there anybody left to help the family of Rasulullah? As Imam Hussein calls out, what does he hear? The women in the tents begin to cry and they begin to wail. He rushes back to the tent, he enters the tent of Sayyidah Zainab. He says, Zainab, why are you crying? Hussein is still alive. Hussein has not left this world yet. Zainab, don't cry just yet. My Mawla Hussein hated to see his younger sister cry. But Zainab turns to Hussein and she says, Hussein, I don't know what it is, but when you raised that cry in the battlefield here, Asghar threw himself to the ground. Asghar has not stopped crying ever since. Imam Hussein says, who has tried to comfort him? Have you tried to stop him crying? Zainab says, yes, I have tried to stop him crying. Imam Hussein, has Rabab tried to stop him crying, his mother? Zainab says, yes, Rabab has tried to stop him crying. Has Bibi Farwa tried to stop him crying? Yes, Farwa has tried to stop him crying. Has Kulsum tried to stop him crying? Yes, Kulsum has tried to stop him crying. Imam Hussein stops for a moment. He looks at Zainab. He says, Zainab, has Sakina tried to stop Asghar from crying? Zainab says, Sakina has tried. No matter what we do, Asghar will not stop crying. Now Mawla Hussein takes his young baby in his arms. He holds Asghar to his chest. He whispers something in the ears of Asghar, and as he does this, he turns to Bibi Rabab. Asghar begins to smile. He says, Rabab, get Asghar ready. Get Asghar ready, I will try and quench his thirst. Bibi Rabab, she takes Asghar in her arms. She gets Asghar ready. Now Mawla Hussein, he takes his baby boy back. What does he do? He places his abba on the floor. His cloak is now on the floor, still stained with the blood of Qasim. As Hussein places Asghar in the cloak, he begins to wrap Asghar up the way you do a newborn baby. My heart tells me my Mawla Hussein must have thought in that moment, if Asghar will give his life, 71 will remain without a kafan, but at least my Asghar will be wrapped up when he leaves this world. Mawla Hussein takes Asghar in his arms again. He begins to leave the tent. As he leaves the tent, someone tugs the back of Mawla Hussein's clothes. They pull him back. Mawla Hussein